Hey everybody, Jonathan Broadbent here, your host of UnWoke Academy. Welcome to another episode. This one, we're going to dive into kind of a back to basics, fundamentals conversation about UnWoke, what it is, what it's all about, where it came from, where it's headed, parallel economy for finance, and all those great things. It occurred to me a few days ago in a conversation with a really good friend of mine who is far from woke and definitely in the battle. He's awake and spearheading many initiatives. And yet, I think parts of what we talk about at UnWoke are kind of missed on this guy. And it tells me that we need to kind of get back to basics and really clearly articulate and work on the message. Because when, not if, when we, the people, use this populist movement that's taking place right now to defund the woke, most all of our problems evaporate. Most of this stuff, the bad things that we see in politics and through our institutions and education, you name it, it has at its core, much of it has money at the root cause of all this stuff. You've heard the expression, money is the root of all evil. It's not actually entirely true, but it's an expression to get your attention. And there is some truth to it. So that's what we're all about. Before we go further into the episode, I do want to pause and make a couple of housekeeping notes. One is OBBM Network. Those guys are great. They've been so cool to work with, tremendously helpful. They have each step of the way since we were encouraged to, I was actually personally encouraged and nudged everybody in the right direction to go into podcasting. I knew nothing about it. OBBM Network now on, what is it, Roku, Apple TV, and a bunch of the other ones that I don't really know anything about. But those streaming services, the apps and everything, you can find OBBM Network. They're spreading all over the country. There are city-specific channels and all kinds of great things. They're growing like awesomeness. So that's one thing. The financial PMA is off to the races. We did a soft launch on 4th of July. That's financialpma.com. Head on over and check it out. And by all means, give me some feedback on it. We built that and I oversaw the whole thing. Every nut and bolt and piece and cog, you name it. We had opportunity to go back to the origins, the beginnings, and evaluate everything. So just to give a little teaser for what that looks like, and there's conversation around all of it, because I'm hoping that other people out there that want to be UnWoke in their life and create things, and people looking at parallel economy, and maybe just even people that want less invasive government three-letter agency type snooping on their lives, we commented on all kinds of stuff. So, for instance, there's an interview that I did a while ago with Andrew Rideau, he had some sort of long title in Trump's White House. He was basically, I think, head of cybersecurity for Trump's White House. He left when Biden was installed, and he formed a company called Liberation Tech. A lot of the financial PMA, and actually a lot of the stuff that we're doing in general, is moving over to those guys at Liberation Tech. It's TEK, not TECH. But check out the interview with Andrew Rideau. And another example, there are actually a few more. One has to do with payment processing. I think by now everybody's woken up to the fact that, awake to the fact, I'm going to put it that way. Everyone's awake to the fact that PayPal is super woke. But there are alternatives. Dan Bongino made one called Align Pay. For banking, we've got Dr. Ben Carson and country music legend John Rich. Let me say that again. Country music legend John Rich formed a bank called Old Glory Bank. Head on over and check them out. They're no affiliation there. Those are just companies that I admire. And they're doing a good job of creating new, we the people first, America first types of alternatives to the woke left. And on the financial PMA, you're going to see a document. There's an agreement for people who sign up and become members of the financial PMA. That agreement I could have allowed a development team, a bunch of developers to go the default route and sign up for one of those wokadoodle, far left, invasive, snooping document signing services. And many of them are. I actually looked personally at some of the profiles and the what do you call it? The privacy policy agreements for them. One in particular, here's just one example. I know it's a side note within kind of a housekeeping message, but this is really important stuff. It has to do with how we maintain our personal lives. Well, one of the e-signature services that is available, and I think a lot of people use, in their agreement, it says that they have access to your actual document and that they might have upwards of 6 or 7 subcontractors that they utilize the services. Well, how in the world? Why would we need 7 or 8 different servers somewhere in the world with a copy of whatever our document is that we're getting somebody to sign? Imagine if that's a non-disclosure agreement or any form of agreement. Why do you want companies? Why would any of us want companies, especially ones that are clearly far left wokadoodle, to have access to that document? Well, we set up the financial PMA in a way that avoids that, and we actually found 2 good firms that don't do that. They actually set up a handshake, and the document is encrypted in a way that they don't see the content of your actual document, in this case, our agreement. And it attaches a legally binding signature. All of that stuff is great, and we should be doing more of it. More importantly, or equally importantly, I commented on all of that as the thing was being built. So head on over to Financial PMA, check it out, give your comments and feedback. Now, here's the deal. There are a lot of people around me, as you can imagine, who are in the fight for America, from everything having to do with First Amendment, Second Amendment, our Constitution, our Judeo-Christian principles, Western values, education, K through 12, even looking at issues like the education curriculum that instructs and teaches teachers how to be in education and continuing education, you name it. There are a lot of people who are fighting to try to hold on to those Western values and not become just this globalist, communist cabal, oligarchy thing that is trying to manifest itself in the United States. So imagine my surprise a couple of days ago, in the midst of yet another conversation with a great freedom fighter. This guy he's out there. He's really fighting hard on a number of fronts. And I mentioned to him part of the initiative of UnWoke and what we talk about and the objective of defunding the woke. And I started talking about how bad things have gotten on Wall Street. And again, just for anybody that's new to the conversation, here's the way that I shape it. Wall Street and financial planners, financial advisor, broker, whatever you want to call them, agents, representatives, financial representative, there are lots of terms that are used for people that work in finance. Right now, that world, that environment is very similar to what doctors went through during COVID. The pressure, and in my view, and I saw a lot of it, and I think we now understand what was happening. We had big pharma that funds corporate hospital systems to the tune of billions of dollars, and the big pharma was applying pressure on those corporate hospital environments to dictate and mandate that doctors go after patients and try and get as many jabs in them as possible. That's broken and horrible. It completely ignores the health and well-being of the patient. In very similar, eerily similar circumstance and environment in the world of finance, you have globalist banks and managers who funnel big money into a huge money, probably bigger even than big pharma, into Wall Street. I'm air quoting Wall Street because Wall Street isn't Wall Street anymore. They turned their back on America a long time ago, which is just taking us a long time to catch up and realize. So those globalist money managers and banks then really have dictated how money is to be managed. And it is forced. It's not flown into it. It has been forced into far left companies, causes, and even countries. By country, I'm going to tease a prior episode. Go back and rewatch or watch for the first time that episode with Justin Bernier from the National Security Index. He and his team, they were involved in creating something called the CPA report, which was presented to Congress. In it, they show how companies like BlackRock, and BlackRock is named specifically in this report, they use offshore managers to take American investment dollars. That means your 401k, IRA, your brokerage account, to take that money, those trillions and trillions of dollars, flow it through offshore managers and into the funding of the Chinese Communist Party, sometimes directly into their military ambitions. That's not what our investment dollars are for. That's not what our retirement account is invested for. There may be some people out there that might turn a blind eye to investing in some of these woke companies as we see them go woke-a-doodle, like John Deere has been on the hook recently with some of their behavior, Coca-Cola, Disney, Target, things like that. But there are very few people out there, really anywhere on the political spectrum, when made aware that their money is being diverted secretly and off radar in sort of hidden ways into the Chinese Communist Party. I think most people would balk. And I'm speaking as a conservative of people pretty far left, pretty progressive liberal Democrats, I think also would very likely balk at that knowledge. Justin Bernier talks at length about that. Watch the episode. It's a great one. But in this conversation a few days ago, I'm talking to somebody who's I actually don't have any idea of the numbers, but I believe is pretty highly affluent, meaning that he's very comfortable financially. And the answer that I got, unfortunately, was that his view, I'm just going to paraphrase. I don't want to put words in this person's mouth. I have great respect for him. But effectively, the whole financial piece, I think, is off radar for him. And he is allowing one of the worst corporatist, globalist banks to manage money in ways that take advantage of really horrible artificial market manipulations. And I'm guessing he's probably making some money off of it. And that's, to me, a sign that I'm not doing enough to get the message out clearly enough and articulate the importance and urgency of defunding the woke. Because if you are, and I want to ask you for a moment to put yourself in the shoes of this individual, and there are lots of people. If you're out there fighting for K through 12 education, you're one of those people that's bold and daring enough to actually go into a school board meeting and try to demand education. Remember that in that scenario, behind the scenes, you've got publishers making oodles of money, publishing horrible stuff, kicking out actual history, replacing it with mostly pornographic, just filthy garbage, cartoonish nonsense for children to brain manipulate them and indoctrinate. But think of the money. That's always what we need to be doing. Think of the money behind the scenes. In hospitals, it's easy. It's big pharma. Big pharma makes a lot of money manipulating the healthcare arena. So in all of these environments, if you are fighting, and it really, at a fundamental level, it's eerily similar to the conversation I've been having for months now about being in the fight. And if you're one of those people that buys into the boycotts, for instance. So let's say that you saw the bad news and the questionable corporate destructive behavior of Harley Davidson or Ford or Chevy or Disney or you name it. Anheuser-Busch, which is the parent company of Bud Light, whatever. If you saw one of those and decided to boycott, great, that's fine. That's more power to you. I actually suggest looking at it in terms of vote your values, or another way we like to put it, dis the globalist left, which stands for know where you donate, invest, and spend, because your money can and will be used against you. And it's being used to destroy the West, and it's our money. But if you're one of those people that was willing to go that step and to boycott those companies, but then won't take that step of looking at the underlying investments of the actual where your money ends up in your IRA or 403b or 401k, or in Ohio, we have OPERS, the public employee retirement system, whatever. You can actually get to the meat of what you're actually invested in, and it may unpleasantly surprise you. I'm sorry to say, but it's better to know now than to continue down this path and allow your money to be used as a weapon against us and to defeat you. But now carry that forward one step further, and we have people who are actually not just boycotting. They're not just simply saying, I'm not going to Target and I'm not going to buy Bud Light, and maybe I don't buy that clothing company. What was it? Carhartt, I think at one point was doing the same thing. By the way, I have to interject a side note. We can't completely blame the company. The company's not off the hook, but the pressure on those companies to defeat themselves and to inflict corporate harm is tremendous. It's something called the Corporate Equity Index. It works like a social credit score against companies, and it really forces them to do those horrible, bad things. So we need to understand at the root what's behind it. Again, always follow the money. Corporate Equity Index is a globalist cabal mechanism. It is a tool, it's both stick and carrot, that allows them to force corporations into inflicting self-harm. And I think that these horrible bad actors are getting a kick out of it. They probably enjoy it because they're narcissistic, megalomaniac, awful, awful people. But imagine that you're one of those people that's in the fight and you are battling for better elections. Again, elections. Look at the money that flows through our elections infrastructure in the United States. That's not just money, that's money and power. The power that comes from being able to control the elections results is unfathomable. If you're in that fight for K through 12 education, if you're in the fight for regaining manufacturing in the United States, for free speech, think of the money that flows through the platforms like X and Facebook and places like it. You're talking hundreds of millions or billions of dollars. It's all money. At the end of the day, it's power and money. But if you're in one of those fights and it hasn't yet occurred to you that the way that you are allowing your money to be invested and controlled and where it's deposited and who it's held by and how it's titled, if you're not thinking in those terms yet, I need to do a better job. That's really what it boils down to. This message and ones like it, the UnWoke message, have to do a much better job of getting out into the ears of the right people. And that's, I would have thought that a starting point is all those patriotic, awake people who are in the battle. But I am taking advantage of this episode to go back to the drawing board a little bit and rethink, because I need to do a much better job of knowing that all the people in the fight, in the battle, are not funding the enemies. So there's actually, I thought about bringing with me, I've got a couple little replica things somewhere in my office. I've got a replica hand grenade and a replica to 50 caliber. That one actually, it's more than a replica. That one's really cool. It actually unscrews and it's a thumb drive. But I thought about bringing those to illustrate a point. If you are in a battle, and we're fighting, this is fifth generation warfare. We're in a battle. Would you ever think about shipping munitions to your enemy? Would you ever think about sending crates of fragmentation grenades or 50 caliber rounds or whatever, anything helpful, food rations, anything? You don't ever want to fund or prop up or encourage and facilitate your enemies. We're doing that with our money. That's the whole root purpose. And if we get back to square one, get back to the fundamentals, what is UnWoke? Why are we here? Why do I do these podcasts? All of it is created. The original premise was really just to spotlight the woke in Wall Street and let people know, hey, there's a problem here. Kind of like the original frontline, America's frontline doctors were exposing potential heart issues and talking about the potential implications, the health implications of going into a medical experiment. That gene therapy was a medical experiment. So those people put the spotlight on, and kudos to them. They did a really good job, and it slowed things in its tracks. But then, of course, the next step in the evolution, everyone started talking about healthy alternatives. And what are the other medicines that maybe have a longer they have a longer track record that we can look at, and we can know what's in them, and it's not hidden mystery ingredients and all that stuff. So those doctors are my heroes, and they are who I model this initiative after. I liken UnWoke to the kind of the America's frontline doctors of finance. And so the next step in the evolution was going out there, talking to, reporting on those managers, those mutual funds, exchange traded funds, et cetera, the companies that are not woke, and the uncovering. I have made some great friends along the way. I hope that you like them as well. By the way, call Matt and Drew at Inspire. If you haven't already, Matt and Drew are awesome. You're really going to dig those guys. But they have what is missing right now in the world of finance, and that is a tried and true practiced methodology, not buying into the woke nonsense that's actually damaging people's portfolios. And now we're finally seeing places like Indiana Secretary of State is suing BlackRock, as a matter of fact, for having used environmental, social, and governance as a proxy and replacement for true observable metrics. I know that sounds complicated, but all it means is, what's your due diligence process? Matt and Drew have it. They never let go of a true due diligence process. So if you like the financial PMA, join. We'd love to have you. We're using some of them that come in as a case study. So we're going to be showing you the steps that we take and what we uncover to help people to go unwoke. It's going to be a pretty cool process. And I'm really excited about the next steps in that. And call Matt and Drew. And if you need life insurance, call Steve Coburn at Coburn Insurance. Steve Coburn's awesome. You're going to really like him. And last thing, if you are able to support this episode and ones like it to keep UnWoke going, we want to keep reporting and delving deep into these types of issues. We'd love to have your financial support. No obligation. You're going to get the material anyway. Don't worry. The only thing that we're actually doing, just to create a little thank you to those who support us financially, is a 3-day wait. Some information releases 3 days earlier for people who are supporting us financially. That's our way of saying thank you. The important thing to know is that everything goes public, and is publicly available for you to use anywhere. Whether it's Matt and Drew, the financial PMA, your advisor, wherever, it doesn't matter. The mission is to defund the woke. And hopefully this episode does a little clearer job of highlighting the importance of accomplishing the mission. I'm Jonathan.